All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to Monday Night Law here on Kirk's Law Corner. What is this, October 9th, 2023? Good times going on out there, right? What's going on over there in Israel? For those of you on my Telegram channel, I shared a video not too long ago. It was August 24th, I think it was. I'd actually got off of YouTube. I've had it for many years. Somewhere around 2012-ish, maybe even before that. Might have been around, it was around 2012-ish, somewhere in there. And those on Telegram that have already seen it, you know what I'm talking about, and how that pertains to not only just what's going on in Israel, but in part of what's been going on in our own backyard here in America. And those of you that are not on Telegram, I would highly recommend getting on my Telegram channel, because really can't share that out there much of anywhere. And the interesting thing is once I pulled that down off of YouTube here, just literally like 4 weeks ago, okay, and I went to go show it in Wednesday night workshop, and been in my playlist forever. All of a sudden, it got removed. What a coincidence. What a coincidence that it got removed. It's been in my playlist for years. Saved playlist. And I thought, before they start removing any more of these videos that I've saved over the years of, rabbit hole research and all that stuff, many of them have been, removed from YouTube. Why that one was still hanging out there, but I'm wondering is because I shared it, but I actually downloaded the video, and so I actually have the video itself. So good timing there. But again, if you're not on my Telegram, that's where I do a lot of my stuff, because Telegram so far really hasn't censored me at all. I mean, we got our issues with spammers impersonating not just myself, but they're impersonating all sorts of people out there trying to scam people for money. So beware of that, folks. Channels, groups, none of them can send private messages. So be very leery of any of the channels that you're subscribed to all of a sudden getting a private message looking like the channel that you're subscribed to, because channels can't send messages. And for me, my personal profile, because you have to set up a personal profile, then you can create channels and groups. That's just how things work. Just like Facebook, you got to create a personal profile, then you can create pages or groups. But they're totally separate. So when you get a private, these guys are pretty ballsy coming on my own channel and in the comments, right? Because they can't post. They can't create a post. They can only make comments under a post. So there's your first key. If it was something that I thought you guys should know about, I would personally make a post about it. I wouldn't make it in a comment. But these guys are pretty ballsy coming on my own channel and going into the comment sections on certain posts and posting their garbage in there, and I try to catch them as soon as possible. So I don't want people getting screwed, by a scammer thinking it's me, and then being upset with me because they thought it was me and it's not me, and they lost money. So not true. I don't do anything with digital currency. Nothing. I don't do any of it, just so you all aware. I don't do it at all. So, if you ever get a private message from what appears to be my channel, it ain't me. Number two, about digital currency of any type, anywhere, anything to do with it, there's your second red flag. Report them and block them. Report them as spam. So, but again, if you're not on my Telegram channel, I highly recommend it, because that's where I dump a lot of stuff. And it's predominantly where I put all the good stuff. Okay? Because Facebook don't like it. And pretty much Facebook and Telegram, I keep my Facebook page because the amount of followers I still have on Facebook. We're talking 15,000 people over there. So, not going to get rid of my Facebook page because I don't like Facebook much. So, just be aware that my personal profile on Facebook is just that, my personal profile. It's literally just, I've narrowed it back down to actual friends and family. So if you've sent me a friend request on Facebook and I declined it or didn't answer, like that, it's not because I don't care. It's just I'm keeping it private. Okay, you want to follow me on Facebook? Follow the channel. Follow the page, Kershaw Corner page. Other than that, my personal profile on Facebook will remain private. I mean, I share things to the public, the general world there, but there's some stuff that I only share privately. So that's the reason for all that. So another thing I'd like to bring up is the petition. Well, it was out there on change.org for just about 48 hours till they took it down. And it's funny, now they're sending me emails to continue to share my petition. But you guys don't even communicate with yourselves? Yeah, how are you sending me an email about sharing my petition when you took it down? For hate speech? Where's the hate speech? And then void for vagueness, because hate speech isn't it. See, again, what does the law say? The law says we have the right to freedom of speech, being responsible for the exercise of that right. And the only two things that's out there that's lawful, is called libel and slander. That's common law trespass. That's the law. So, can't have a policy that says, oh, well, you can't exercise your right to freedom of speech. And then, like in this instance, you can't even exercise your right of petition. I mean, it's on their website about the right of petition. Yeah, it's a right, and you're depriving that right to try to gather signatures. But that's okay, because just do it with just Jonathan and myself on there. And I want to thank everybody who jumped on that and did sign it. I can't even download the list. I mean, it's like gone off of change.org. I go into my petitions, none. So I can't even have access to my own petition. Yet they can send me now 2 emails about to continue sharing my petition out there. Anyways, so there's that. And pray for Jonathan out there. They're on the road, headed out to Tennessee for an event out there. I can't remember the what it is. It's a pretty good event. So I wish I could be there for that one too, but I was offered to come and be a part of that, but I just don't have the finances, and that's the big thing, finances. So anyways, so that's where the petition is at, and we're going to be working on that, and looking forward to whatever's going on out there with Jonathan, what they're going to be doing out there for that one. I may cover that. So stay tuned for that. I can't remember, 14th? I think it's 14th, something like that. I'll have to get the dates again for what he's got going on out there. But yeah, we're going to get that petition in and get that right away, get it into Congress. And unfortunately, he's on the road, so all he's got to do is do the digital signature, which I can do through an email, which was the problem with DocuSign, is I'd have to send everybody an email, and that would be very, very painstaking. So I opted not to do that. Change.org was a viable option because it gathers all the signatures for me, and I could just download the list. I didn't get to it soon enough. We were up over 400 people in less than 48 hours. So thank you to those who jumped on that right away. I missed the opportunity to download your signatures, but nonetheless, it'll go in, and it will be addressed to Congress. So that'll be happening here shortly. Now, switching gears here, Thursday night on the National Assembly call, somebody had asked, and I could not. There's something I need to I think I need to update my software, the application for free conference call on my phone, because when it goes into the education part and they switch over and you have to, whatever, mine just freaks out and I can't. I try, but it doesn't work. So, and this is the second time it's done that. So I'm pretty sure it needs an update, because I have mine pretty much all set to manual update for software, and 'cause I don't like it doing. So that would be my guess. It's probably been a good year that's been on my phone that I haven't updated free conference calls. So that's probably the issue. But anyway, I was on there, and that's the thing. He was looking for my name, said he didn't even see me on there, so that's weird. But anyways, the question was asked about the petition, and I'm not real happy with the answer, which was, this petition's for the de facto. So let me clarify a few things for those that may be new here or have just recently tuned into me. I've already covered this stuff about the executive orders and how we're at war. Was starting this stuff clear back in October of 2017, folks. Okay. Derek Johnson does a pretty good job at laying that stuff out, but talks about how he's the only one that's been doing this and telling people about it. And that's false, because those have been following me long enough and already know that I was laying this stuff out as that stuff came out. Now, one thing that I did miss, because I did start in like October of 2017, was the 2 federal directives for continuity of government. Okay? There's our new form of government coming through with the continuity of government. Okay? Now, we have to understand, I've covered Article 4, Section 4, and Luther versus Borden, and how this is a political argument, not a judicial one, and that the executive branch, the president, but only acting as commander-in-chief, has these powers. So this is right in line with what Derek Johnson says, and what I've said, is that there are 2 parts to, you got the president and you got the commander-in-chief. It's 2 roles, 2 separate roles, kind of balled into one through the Constitution, but the reality is military stuff has been around way longer than our Constitution. I mean, I can take you clear back to 1553 with the Merchant Marines, the civil power, the unorganized by government militia, but these military powers been around long time. It's in the Law of Nations. I've got it pulled up. I don't know if I'll get to that. That may actually be like something we can talk about next week, because kind of want to get into this stuff here, and I'm going to get into answer some of the questions there that was on Thursday night's call, on the National Assembly call. I can't believe somebody couldn't answer the question about the jury. But I'm going to back up here to the petition is not to the de facto. The de facto essentially has been abolished. We are in a continuity of government. We are under martial law. The commander-in-chief is in charge, and Texas v. White specifically states that only acting as commander-in-chief has the power to set up, now pay attention, provisional government pending the outcome of the war. We are at war. I do not know how else to explain this, but keep it simple. We're at war. World war. Okay, and we're seeing this right now over there in Israel. Okay, Executive Order 13818, blocking the property of those involved in serious human rights abuse and corruption. That is going in and taking down bad governmental regimes and instituting new democracies is what they've been doing, and having free and fair elections, and then doing a treaty of peace. How do you do a treaty of peace if we're not at war? You can't. You got to be at war in order to do a treaty of peace. This makes logical sense, common sense. So, the same thing with what's going on in Ukraine. Okay? Now it's going to be happening over there in Israel. Okay? The bad guys are being taken down worldwide. If you're new to all of this, go watch a couple of my videos there that I've done on that. What was it, October 26th, something like that, on my Rumble channel there. That's the best place for you to go there. And where I went over the executive orders and stuff again, and just laid all this stuff out. Okay, this is all in writing. You know, the executive order 13818. You know, I know Derek really likes to talk about that whole, the executive order 13848, which is the foreign interference in a federal election. That's not the executive order that's really the important one. It's 13818. That's the one that even lists the bad actors in Saudi Arabia's government who are to be arrested. Their names are listed in the executive order. Okay? That was the first place that was hit. 2017. This executive order is from December 20th, 2017. Now, that was when the Trump administration went over there and took down the bad actors per the executive order, because what is an executive order? It's a military order. Military gives orders. Executive, military, orders to execute the law of war, because that's what the commander-in-chief is. That's for war. So, that's where the video footage out there about Trump doing the sword dance and all the stuff with walking in front of the Queen in England and meeting with the Pope, and that Pope, he sure in the heck wasn't all smoking and joking like he was with Obama and Bush and Clinton when they were presidents. Well, they were just all giggly, happy, smoking and joking over there, having a good old time. But not when it came to Trump. Yeah, because Trump was putting the hammer down and said, you're done. When Trump says, hey, I can end this stuff in one day, that's exactly what he's talking about. Because he goes in and sits down and says, look, we have it all. Here's what's happening. We're going to shut this down, and this is what we're going to do. If not, we're going to bring the military in, and we'll just take you out. So, that's war, folks. That's how that works. And, you know, we talk about the Law of War Manual. That's a good one. But the real Law of War Manual is the Law of Nations. Book 3, Chapter 1. War. War and peace. Okay? What are the duties of the people, even? And I was going to try to get into that when I was down there in Arizona for the law seminar I did there on Sunday. But didn't quite get there. But make no mistake, you know, a lot of people ask us questions about the petition. Well, what if they don't? Well, what does it say? As it is written, what does it read? On application of the legislature can be, the executive if the legislature can't be convened for domestic violence. Okay, so if we do the petition to Congress, the legislative branch, and they fail to act and do as they're instructed to do, then we move on to the executive. And if they fail to take action as they are instructed to do, then it really comes back down to the sheriff, which technically speaking, the governors under Article 1, Section 10, for foreign invasion can do this kind of stuff. They don't necessarily need Congress to do that, but they do need Congress to declare war. Congress is the only branch of our under federalism here, the legislative branch under on the federal side. Article 1, Section 8 has the power to declare war, to call forth the militia. Okay? That is a power strictly belonging to the legislative branch, to Congress. This does not need the gubernatorial or presidential approval. Okay, this isn't a bill. This isn't making a statute. So these are powers that properly belong to the legislative branch. Or the executive. The legislature can't be convened. So if they don't do their job, then it goes over to the executive. then if they don't do it, then we can. That's what it really boils down to, folks. And so all this stuff right here, this all kind of ties together with what's going on over there in Israel and the video that I shared. I don't even want to mention the title of the video or anything about it because of where this is going, Facebook and YouTube. I know it's going on Rumble. Rumble's great. I haven't had any problems on Rumble either. But Telegram's where it's at for me and so many other people, patriots like myself, that share a lot of controversial type video stuff that instantly either gets taken down off YouTube or some sort of a fact checker my opinion over there on Facebook. Okay, so I highly recommend getting on there. And if you need a link to my Telegram channel, go to my website, kirkslawcorner.com. Go to the links tab. There's a link there, or you can look at the upper left-hand corner right on the home page there. There's the Telegram icon. You can click right on that. It'll take you right to my Telegram channel. Okay? So again, highly recommend, whether you like Telegram or not. I think it's great. But that's where it's at. There's a lot of stuff going on Telegram it's not happening anywhere. It's not on Getter. It's not on True Social. They're all limited. Telegram is pretty much unlimited. And nobody regulating Telegram. And when you create your own channel, whatever, you can post wherever you want. Okay? Now, I'm staying within reason, right? You don't want to be claiming you're going to commit murder or anything like that, or any kind of terrorist activities. You don't want to be mentioning any of that kind of stuff on there, I would assume. I don't know. I don't do that kind of stuff. So, excuse me. But, so the petition, no, is not going to the de facto. The de facto has been taken down March 20th of June 20th of 2020. The corporation was involuntarily bankrupted by Trump as the president of the corporation. Okay, and it gets back into the executive order 13818 on January 20th, 2021. There, when Trump federalized the National Guard military service and surrounded and boarded up D.C. D.C. no longer exists, folks. Again, go on Google Maps and look for it. It's not there. Washington, sure, but it doesn't say D.C. Okay, I put that out when that all first happened. But that's the military right there. That, per the Law of War Manual, they call that a foreign occupied territory. They were all given the option, the choice, to declare the election a fraud and to give up and let Trump come in and do what he needs to do. They didn't. So it had to be done the way that it was done. So that became District of Columbia became a foreign occupied territory belonging to the people of the United States of America, the nation. Okay? So that's why the military went in and put 3 layers of fencing up and took over the District of Columbia, and now it's just Washington. Right? Some people have been paying attention can reaffirm this stuff, but they put fences up around the White House, and there were strange things going on there. Kids coming out. Where in the heck were all these kids coming from? Buses coming up and kids coming out and being loaded on buses from underground, underneath the White House. Now, this is why Melania Trump said she did not want to sleep in the White House. Because remember, the White House isn't the Capitol. The White House is like a house for the president. All other things are done over there in the Capitol. You got the 2 different wings of the Capitol. You got the House, that's called the House there. But you have the House of Representatives and the Senate on one side and on the other side. All their rooms and committee rooms and everything that they have their hearings and stuff in. And then they have the main assembly rooms. Okay? That's where all that good stuff happens in the legislative branch. But the White House, there was even a video out there not long after all that stuff went up. And they were showing the streets were flooding because they were flooding the underground tunnels. Okay? After they went in and took them out, trying to flush other people out, my guess. That would be my guess, flush them out on the other end. But that's some of the stuff that was going on in that foreign occupied territory, and they were given the opportunity to do the right thing, and they didn't. So they want to play a hardball. That's what's happening. There's Penguin 6 and what was Nancy Drew out there. Penguin 6 on YouTube and Nancy Drew on YouTube, Facebook. They've been going around D.C. and showing all this stuff being boarded up. Okay, putting fences up around certain buildings and boarding them up, supposedly remodeling. No, they're going in and going underground and rescuing the children that are underground. These people are sick. Okay? Like Trump said, this stuff was much bigger than they thought. So that's why it's taken an awful long time, because it's much bigger than they thought. There's a lot of stuff to take care of. We're talking hundreds of years, right? They've been doing this stuff. And I mean, even thousands of years. This is all part of, their satanic rituals, Roman Catholic Church. And, I apologize to those out there that are Catholics and might be offended with some of this stuff, but it's the truth. I'm talking about the Roman Catholic Church. And, some of this stuff's come out already about, we've heard it over the years. Priest got busted for diddling some boy. Okay? This stuff's been happening even as far back as like 4000 BC, folks. These satanic rituals, all this stuff about the adrenochrome, all that happy stuff, or evil stuff. Let's call it evil stuff. Let's not call it happy. So, a lot of that stuff has been happening for a very long time, and it's all been a cover. They have to stay in power to cover up, and this is in part of the reason why the FBI was created, was to run interference from anybody who might be catching on to their shenanigans, that their satanic rituals and all that kind of stuff. And, they go after people that want to try and be a whistleblower and tell on a pedophile ring, whether it's a sheriff's office or police chief of police office, anything like that. Because, a lot of these people are all involved in this stuff. You got this, what they call pedophile rings, okay? It's a ring. You got the sheriff's office or the police officer's office then you've got the prosecutor. Sometimes you have CPS involved, and you got a judge. There's your ring of people. Okay, it takes these people working together to achieve all this stuff, and a lot of them are in on it. Okay. Right. So this is, some of the stuff that's been going on for, taking this stuff down. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of people involved. So, I don't know. If you seem to think you can handle it better, let me know. But I can guarantee you the good guys military is working on it and has been for many years now, as well as the U.S. Marshals. That's another question I've posed out there to people is, is 20,000 military service members that were sworn in as U.S. Marshals. Why would military service members need to be sworn in as U.S. Marshals? They're already under oath to be in the military. That's because the U.S. Marshals is part of the civil power. Okay? That's why that happened. The civil power. Remember, the military is subordinate to the civil power. I know that there's a lot of people out there that probably don't want me talking about that. But I think this is going to be the new line of thought here over the next couple Monday Night Laws is talking about the unorganized portion of the militia and what the powers of the people are, the civil power. That we have every right to take up arms and defend this nation called America. Now, there's a couple of recent cases there. The Bruin case out of New York striking down, the Supreme Court struck down. That was June of 2020. Yeah, 2023. June of 2023. Or no, 2022. So June of 2022. This all went all the way up to the Supreme Court about New York's statute requiring people to request permission to just open carry in New York. And you have to give reasons why you want to open carry. And then they get to determine, this is a local police office, they get to determine whether or not those are good enough reasons for you to open carry. And so here it is again. What I'm trying to say here is that, Roe versus Wade was the shot across the bow, changing back to real law, common law, laws of nature. Because in the Bruin case, they went all the way back to the common law of England. Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England, and said, "Oh, no, we all the people have the right to keep and bear arms, because that right goes all the way back to the laws of nature." The right of self-defense. And the Second Amendment says it shall not be infringed. Now, they're still leaving it open for, well, unless you commit certain felonies, so nobody's really attacked that yet. But the reality is there's no legislative authority delegated. Where does it say, and Congress shall have the authority to regulate this right? It's not there. There is no delegation of authority. It specifically states shall not be infringed. Okay? And let's apply this principle equally to all of the Bill of Rights here. The right of due process of law. Okay, do they have the authority to make legislation regarding due process of law? The answer is no. Mm-mm. No. Due process of law comes from the common law. And if they were to make legislation, this is the rule of law, or the principle of the common law, that statutes in derogation of the common law must be in compliance with the common law. You cannot subvert the common law, because that's what that is if they try to fundamentally alter the fundamental law, that is subversion of law. You're subverting the law. Because remember, statutes are for government civil conduct. That common law is a whole body of law, the law of nature and all that. That's a body of law that's separate from the Constitution and comes before the Constitution. Remember, Declaration of Independence, that these, to assume the powers of the earth, the laws of nature and nature's God, and that among these unalienable rights is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, receiving their just powers under the consent of the governed. Okay, it is a delegation of powers, which is, one of the biggest arguments out there about the Constitution is like, well, if it doesn't say that we can't do it, then we can. No. That's bar speak. That's word salad. That's not how that works. It's a contract of employment. It's a delegation of power. And again, I'll go with my go-to joke of, contracting with somebody to paint their house. And, you just discuss things like what color you want the trim, what color you want the body, when it's going to be done, how much it's going to cost and all that stuff. But you get into the particulars about the color of paint and the color of trim and all that. Okay? What you want painted. Now, in that contract, does it say that you can't paint my fence, that you can't chop down my trees, that you can't have sex with my wife, or I can't have sex with my daughter, or you can't steal my dog, or got the Corvette in the garage? Well, it doesn't say that I can't go into the garage and take your Corvette for a spin. That's how stupid that is, to make the comment that, oh, well, it doesn't say that we can't. Well, the contract didn't say that I can't do those things. Yeah. It's a contract to do a certain thing, and you're delegated certain powers, and that's it. If that power isn't delegated within the Constitution, which is the instrument of government, where we delegate those powers, then that power doesn't exist. Plain and simple. It's completely illogical to think, oh, well, it doesn't say that I can't. Well, it doesn't say that you can. That's the key to all this. So, getting back to the rule of law and the common law of the land, see, they leave the word common off of law of the land to try and deceive people, but that really is part of the common law of the land. So, law of the land literally means due process of law. Whoops, imagine that. So, when you look at the Constitution itself, you're looking, wait a minute, this is the process to bring the president into being, to bring the legislature into being, to bring the executive into being, to bring the judicial into being. It has all these different processes, like for judge, judges on the Supreme Court. Let's just go start there. Well, it says that the president nominates and the Senate affirms or confirms. There's a process. There's due process of law. And, that's part of what the Constitution really is the process, supreme due process of law. And then our rights, technically speaking, are long antecedent to the formation of government to begin with. See Hale versus Henkel. So our rights already pre-existed. The Bill of Rights, really, all of those rights that are enumerated there are just merely declaratory of the common law. That's American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 100. Bills of Rights and those merely declaratory of the common law, their provisions are mandatory. Imagine that. There's no language there that says, and Congress shall have the authority to make further legislation. No, like the 14th Amendment says, right? See, the 14th Amendment does say that. Imagine that. There's your clear distinction. There's your example right in the fraudulent 14th Amendment. So they don't have any legislative authority. That's where we get into lack of personal jurisdiction and lack of subject matter jurisdiction. Yes, there's also territorial jurisdiction. I get that. But I want to narrow this down to personal and subject. The subject, the right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed. Any legislation that says you can't have this because if you do this, that's an infringement. Because if the right comes from the law of nature, as a natural God-given right, the right of self-defense, one of the 6 primitive laws of nature here, the right of self-defense, any legislation that would try to attempt to deprive that would be an infringement. Okay? So even in the Rahimi case, which was out of Texas, originally was based off of the domestic violence protection order, and that case was actually put on hold pending the outcome of the Bruin case, because that one was already in the Supreme Court, and this is over in the Fifth Circuit. So they wanted to wait for the Supreme Court to rule on the right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed, and went, oh, I'll be darned, yeah. Which, by the way, struck down not only New York's code statutes regarding anything to do with seeking permission to exercise the right, all other states that had the similar, whether it was like 7 or 9 other states that had similar provisions in their code, so-called statutes, that you had to seek permission to carry. You don't have to do that no more. That's what the Supreme Court ruled on. So there we go, going back to, man, they went clear back to the, Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England in 1600s. Hello? For the right of self-defense from the laws of nature on the right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed. So, in the Rahimi case, they struck down, for those of you who have ever gotten a domestic violence protection order, or any kind of protection order that has that, 18 U.S. Code subsection blah, 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 you have to go to your local sheriff and turn in your arms pending the outcome of it. Nope, struck that down. That's unlawful and unconstitutional. Same thing with the New York. It was unlawful and unconstitutional. See, the word law, lawful, full of law. Unlawful, no law. SMU, SHMU. Okay? This is your evidence that we're changing back to the common law, the laws of nature. Nature's God. Okay? There's your evidence that things have changed. And again, I bring up Roe versus Wade because that one got a lot of people's attention. And then they overturned that. That should have been a big eye-opener for a lot of people. Wait a minute, Supreme Court's actually ruling correctly now? Out of the blue? Yep. Because 2 of them new Supreme Court justices in there were nominated by Trump. Right? Amy Coney Barrett and Robertson, something like that. Those 2 there. And it's interesting how Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or whatever her name is, Ginsburg, how she just recently passed away. And it's like, And that's Justice Roberts, yeah. So, these things are happening for a reason. Right? Back to the continuity of government and Trump setting up provisional government pending the outcome of the war. We're at war, folks. Well, I just now looking at some of the comments out here. No, we're winning. It's just the corruption is pretty deep. That's why it's called the deep state. A deep state of being corrupt. And it's going to take some time. These things take time. We're talking hundreds of years of planning. Okay, you got to understand these families. Okay, you want to talk about the long game? These folks, they play the generational long game. And I'll give you an example. The Cestui Trust Act of 1666. Okay, 300 plus years ago. That's how long game these guys play. Generations are trained and taught this stuff, okay? And it's those slow encroachments it talks about in the Declaration of Independence. When a long train of abuses and these slow encroachments, because that's what's going on, is these little tiny changes here and there, and nobody really says anything, or there might be one little change that pops up and people get pissed off about it and hoot and holler about it, but they don't really do anything about it. Well, slowly eroding our rights. Okay? And yes, we are at this particular point, which I've called this out a few years back. It's time to pick a side, folks. And I know that right here, right now, tonight, that there are a lot of people that are either watching right now or may watch later, that they're just now waking up. Maybe even within the last year. So, forgive me for sometimes I get a little harsh when I'm like, come on, people, I've been putting this stuff out for five years. Where in the heck you been? Pull your head out of the sand, those kinds of things. So that's what I'm talking about. Forgive me for that, but some of us have been paying attention for a little while, or a long while, in my case, since like 1995. Didn't really get into politics until around 2007, 2009-ish, when really started kicking off for me in 2009-ish with Obama. And like, what the hell's going on here? This guy can't be our president. He's not a natural born citizen. Blah, 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 blah. I was calling that stuff out way back then. So, I get that this might be new to some people in understanding what's really going on. Okay? We're at war. World war. And this deep state corruption is systematically being taken down. But it takes time. It's not going to just happen overnight, folks. Okay? And like Trump said, it's much bigger than they thought. So, right on, Oscar. 2008, yep. That's, 2007 kind of started paying attention a little bit. 2009, I really started. 2009 is kind of when I started down the rabbit holes of the Illuminati and, what's the other one? The Freemasons and, the Clinton Chronicles. Yeah, that was one that was floating around out there, and there was some really good videos back in the day on YouTube, and that's in part what I was referring to before. Is I had all these videos saved, and on a YouTube playlist, and many of those types of videos have been scrubbed. I don't know how this one that I had didn't get scrubbed, but my guess is that I put it out there on Telegram, and they went, oh crap, Kirk's putting something out, because You know the deep staters are watching. You know, they're watching what I'm putting out because they want to know what I'm teaching you folks out here. And they don't, you know, they want to hide any evidence of their crimes and their criminal syndicate and their satanic rituals and all that good stuff. Of course, they want to hide all that stuff. So they want to take that stuff down. Before it can really get out there. So yeah. Yeah, I didn't vote for Obama either, by the way. In fact, I actually never really voted much. There was one time uh, back in the Marine Corps I did vote once. Believe it or not, I think excuse me. I think I actually voted for Bush, but um, yeah, I actually didn't do any other voting until my mom ran for city council once. So all right, so in order to vote for my mother, I had to register to vote. So and then the only time that I ever voted after that was for Trump. So I actually did not vote the first time around. I didn't vote for anybody. So it's only been in recent history that that I've been actually, registered voter and voting. I voted in the 2020 election, and then I voted in the midterm election. So, technically speaking, pretty much my whole entire life, I've only voted 3 times. So, but yeah, that's, this is part of the stuff that I had out there and saved on my YouTube, and a lot of it's just been missing and gone, but that's where we're at with all that stuff. That's what's happening. This is a world war. And like the comment out here is that remember Albert Pike in his memoir stated that the Third World War would be a silent war, and that's it. And it's funny too because my uncle and I have discussed this many years ago. If we ever got into a Third World War, it would be a silent war. This would all be more or less in the digital realm of things. Albeit joking about it, but being realistic at the same time. We've been talking about this stuff since 2007, 2009. We talk politics all the time. So, mostly how crappy things are. Not really much of anything good. But many conversations between my uncle and myself. I love my uncle. He's a pretty sharp guy. Kind of runs into our family. They're an extremely high mechanical aptitude, high IQ. And my uncle and I, we're a lot alike, skills and abilities wise. And we've had some pretty interesting conversations over the years, let me tell you. So, but these videos, been taken down, scrubbed from the internet because they don't want people to know the truth. Okay, so that one video that I just recently shared, and I recently shared it again just today. It's so weird how this all just happened, especially with the video specifically, is that I decided to go and get these videos off of YouTube before they delete any more stuff. And I started putting stuff out there on my Telegram channel to kind of start waking people up. Like, it's just some pretty serious stuff, guys. You need to know what's been going on and who's who. I really don't even want to name names or anything like that because of what's in that video. Okay? So, The fact is that they just recently took it down off of YouTube, where it's been on there for a decade plus. But how is that? Why is that? That's the ultimate question. And then the fact is all this stuff just popped up, and I'm like, ding, 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 winna, winna, chicken dinner. There it is. That's the reason why. Because of what's going on in Israel. Okay. All right. So now I'd like to move on to the part about the jury. Okay. This is going to get into what our form of government really is, and how it's all supposed to be. The General Assembly and all this stuff. Okay. We're supposed to have this General Assembly first. You have to have the General Assembly first. So this goes into the statuses, and this comes from the law of nations, as regarded as international law. So you have the inhabitants. Of course you get your vagrants, your vagabonds, and then those kinds of other somewhat derogatory terms. But when we're going to talk about a status here in America, per the law of nations, Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 213 lays out what an inhabitant is, and that there's a different kind of an inhabitant and a different kind of citizen, and in part being a resident. So this is why I try to tell people, don't be freaked out. Again, people need to change their source of information. And this is the problem. Going to code and using their definitions of what a citizen is or what a resident is and all that. That's all fraud, folks. That's not law. It's garbage. Start reading real law. You'll see me write that out there. Real law. With a capital L. Law. Okay? Law of nations. That's a body of law. And it is regarded as international law. There's no getting around it. That is a body of law. And the full title really is the Law of Nations, or the Principles of the Laws of Nature as applied to the conduct of nations. Uh-oh. So not only does it cover the law of nature first, because you got the preliminaries that covers the laws of nature in general, and then that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. This is what the whole law of nations is really about, is about the law of nature. And it dictates the conduct. That's the key to all that. But anyways, getting back into the jury, right? And one of the questions, I think the question was something about, getting into, like the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776, talks about the jury of our peers, of our vicinage. Now, for some reason, they've removed vicinage out of there, and I swear it used to say a jury of our peers of 12 men of our vicinage, who without whose unanimous consent cannot be found guilty. I don't know if this is a Mandela effect or not, but the part about the vicinage, which there was a gentleman on there that talked about that, was that not transporting people across the seas, that's in the Declaration of Independence, as a declared act of tyranny, to be tried for these pretended crimes, right? That's why the vicinage was in there. But a jury of our peers. See, in history and how this all worked from the 1776 era up till around 1871, okay, part of the General Assembly was actually the church. Okay? And that's what they meant by a jury of our peers. The church. Because this was all actually handled common law-wise through the church. Okay? When we're talking about common law side of things, we took care of things ourselves back in the day. And this is the American common law, which is a very clear distinction between the English common law. And this is why the king was all butthurt and doing what he was doing through the 1600s, when we were trying to separate from the Roman Catholic Church Catholicism as an ideology versus Christianity as an ideology. So this is what we're talking about. Is this ideological conflict and how things were being handled by the people, and the king had no control because he wasn't making any money off of it. That's, in reality, that's the biggest part of it, right? Because there's no Roman civil law, there's no bills of attainder, there's no code. Like sometimes referred to it as a code of conduct, which really is all under ecclesiastical law, under the law of the air. These morals and principles, soul, trust, trying to save our soul, and that's what they do with the monarchy and Catholicism, is they dictate what our morals and principles should be, versus Christianity, where we have the right of choice, liberty of conscience. We get to choose for ourselves the free exercise of religion, or the lack thereof. But really, religion is about the right of conscience, the right of self-determination, the right to think for ourselves. Okay, that's a fundamental right, or liberty of conscience. So, we were taking care of business on a local level by ourselves. Well, he wasn't getting his revenue, right? That stuff was getting done away with in the American common law and our American form of government, starting clear back in 1606 with the first Charter of Virginia. So, this is how we were supposed to, it's right out of the Bible, right? Due process of law. If you got a problem with a man, you're supposed to go to that man and try to reason with him. And if you can't reason with him and come to a resolution, then you're supposed to go back to the church, get two men, come back, and try to reason with him again. And if you can't reason with him, the two men can't reason with him and come to a resolution, then you're supposed to go back to the church and what? That's right, assemble a petite jury of 12 men of your peers. Your church, which is the people, the congregation, Congress. Imagine that. General Assembly. That was your vicinage, and those were your peers because you went to church with them. They knew your character. They knew what you did and your mannerisms and that kind of stuff, which made it very difficult for, somebody to pull the wool over the people's eyes, because everybody knew everybody, right? It was a close-knit community, one church in town, and this goes into why the colonies were set up the way they were. It was, if you wanted to be Catholics went over here. Perfect example of that right now is the Amish. Okay? That's originally what the colonies were supposed to be about. The free exercise of religion, how you folks saw fit in your community. One church, one building. The church was the school. Kids went to school during the week, and it was church on Sunday. And then, oh my gosh, that right of petition, the legislature for the redress of grievances, well, that was done there. And then the petition essentially would be drafted with the grievances, and that would go to the legislative branch. Right? But all of this stuff is created before the legislative branch. So this is the first branch of government, not the fourth. Because law of creation, what has to come first is first. So this is essentially part of the first branch of government, including the grand jury, the petite jury, right? Because we, the people, even the committees, right? These were all done by the people. It wasn't done by the legislative branch and in the legislative branch. This is part of that hijacking of our Republican form of government where the people retained this power. So, and this is how we provided oversight. And grand jury indictments, those were for the public servants. Now think about this. The Bill of Rights, that's for the public servants when they swear an oath to the Constitution. That was for them. That's for them. We already have a body of law over here that we the people, suits between man and man, suits at common law. We dealt with that kind of stuff over here by ourselves. Now, like removing public servants and stuff, okay, yeah, grand jury indictment, that kind of stuff. We, the people, would have a committee, and you'd have a grievance, and your grievance could be heard through the committee on a local level. And we would indict the public servant, bring them over here to the common law court, and we took care of business over here. That's our republic, folks. That's a Republican form of government where the people are claiming and exercising their political power. And this is what we're going to get back to. This is part of why we're talking about reassembling the General Assembly. This government de jure. Lawful government. Not government de facto. Okay? But again, I want to reiterate this about the continuity of government. And the president has this power, not only is that not as president, but acting as commander-in-chief has the power to set up this provisional government. So everything that's in place right now is all provisional. Okay? It's a band-aid. Okay, being held together, some semblance of our republic, at least on the federal side, because each state, technically speaking, is a country, a franchise of the corporation. But if the parent corporation, the United States Inc., is done, you can't have any franchises under the parent corporation, a child or franchise. So that there you have it, right? So this is what's going on right now with us over there, national-assembly.net. We're trying to bring the men and women together to bring out the people, because there's the status, back to them statuses, the people, and then section 212 is citizen, capital C, proper noun, improprior persona, in their proper person. Governor, president, those are persons. Okay? Those that are members of a civil society who are bound to perform certain duties. Those powers delegated, the emoluments of that office that the Constitution lays out and dictates, yeah, they have to discharge those duties and is subject to its authority. Ooh, that's what it says in Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 212, the definition of a citizen. And if you go to Article 6, Clause 3, it says, all the aforementioned senators, representatives, and members, so it uses the word members. Again, our founders wrote directly from the Law of Nations. Okay? They use the definitions and verbiage from the Law of Nations. That's why I keep telling people out there that you need to change your source of the law when you're looking for definitions and those kinds of things, okay? Because it goes based on, at the time the document was written, what was their resources? What was their sources of law that they used to cite from? Well, the Law of Nations, written by Emerdy Vattel. Well, I'll be darned. And then it says, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution in Article 6, Clause 3. So there you have it. Those are the citizens. They're bound by the Constitution. The Constitution applies to them, not to the people, not to the inhabitants. We're not a party to it. We're not part of it. Okay? But nonetheless, when you change from the inhabitant to one of the people, a resident, okay, you have to declare you're settling here, and you become a resident. And when you do this, and then like what I've talked about before, registering to vote, that's how you qualify as an elector. That's how you become one of the people and get political power, political rights. That's how that works, per the law of nations. Otherwise, you just stay over there as a free inhabitant. And it's okay, right? Because the government shouldn't have anything to do with the inhabitants. You don't have any personal jurisdiction over them. Neither does it really have any personal jurisdiction over the people, with the exception of a governmental compelling interest. And then they have to pass the strict scrutiny standard. Right? It's like I've said before, like threading the eye of a needle in the dark. It's already hard enough in the daylight. But in order for government to reach through that eye of the needle and come over here onto our property, our rights, an aggregate of guaranteed rights, because that's the definition of property, is an aggregate of guaranteed rights. That is those unalienable rights. We're not talking about political rights. We're talking about natural rights, God-given rights, the laws of nature. Okay? In order for government to reach over there and even mess with any of them, otherwise it's a common law trespass, or trespassing on our property, the common law, they have to pass the strict scrutiny standard test. There's a test. Okay? So, and it has to have, that power has to be delegated through the Constitution itself. Can't be done through a statute, because that's not where powers are delegated. That's policy, at best. Policy can only be made off of the law of the land, where the subject was delegated. And there's absolutely no personal jurisdiction over man in the private. Here in Idaho, even though this is the de facto constitution to begin with, corporate constitution, Idaho, weren't established or created until after the Reconstruction Acts of 1871 with our Constitution. Now, the Organic Law, the Organic Act for the territory of Idaho was 1863. That was right there at the time of the Lieber Code, and when this all started there, the so-called Civil War. Technically speaking, we've been at war since 1776. Okay? But this all really, really went down in 1863. With the first executive order, General Orders 100. So this is when all that took place, and basically extending admiralty and vice admiralty jurisdiction beyond its ancient limits. Again, which Congress did in 1845. Which, in my mind, you put those pieces of the puzzle together, why the people probably rose up and had the problems and issues that they did have, why the Civil War broke out to begin with. It wasn't about slavery, abolishing slavery. It was about enslaving us all again and implementing the admiralty jurisdiction onto the land again. That's what it was really about. So, this is what we have to do. We have to educate ourselves and learn what these terms mean and how this is all supposed to work, and learn what due process of law really is. What is the process that is due? Better get digging into your Bible a little bit more. So this was all the way things were set up back in the day. The true republic that our founders created in 1776. With the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776, and the Virginia Constitution, June 29, 1776, as the theoretical foundation of all government. Yeah, because when you create a new nation, you have to declare your ideology, which the Virginia Declaration of Rights of June 12, 1776 declares Christianity as our ideology for this nation called America. Okay? That's the document, not the Declaration of Independence. The Lee's Resolution, Virginia Declaration of Rights, the Virginia Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence all go together. And I highly recommend people reading them together, and you'll see the bigger picture. Okay? That's right, the Virginia Company. Yeah, there was all sorts of companies, corporations. It's a wonder why things got changed back to a corporation, because that's kind of how things were being ran to begin with, was corporate charters. But that's the fundamental change from the English common law, the monarchy, under Catholicism, to American common law and into our republic. Christianity is the ideology. Okay? And this even goes clear back to 1215 with the Magna Carta. The Great Charter of Liberty was basically the Protestants, the Christians, separating from the Roman Catholic Church, Catholicism. They wanted to be free. They did not want to be subject to the crown. They did not want to be their slaves, subjects, under the king's thumb, where the king could come in and, take your harvest from your crops, could take your trees right off of your land. Well, because the king says he needs it. Well, because the king says he wants it. That's what it really is. It was. Okay? So, again, I encourage people to read those 4 documents together, and you'll see the bigger picture of our true republic. All right, so this is kind of how our republic is supposed to be. The General Assembly first. We got to assemble the General Assembly, and in part. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a change over there, but hey, some people are still learning. We're all still learning here. That the General Assembly is separate from the grand jury. Now, while the grand jury does come from, essentially, the pool of the people, which consists of the General Assembly, which makes up the General Assembly, and then, of course, the General Assembly creates the Constitution. And then once the General Assembly creates the Constitution, that Constitution is submitted to the people to be ratified. Well, the Constitution creates the representatives, the senators, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the treasurer. Again, you got to have all this stuff over here first in order to create the Constitution, the instrument of government. So again, it's not a 4th branch of government, it's the first branch of government. It comes first. So, anybody out there telling you that they've got all this stuff over there, they can do this and they can do that and blah, 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 they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know the law. They don't know the law of nations. They don't know the Virginia Declaration of Rights. They don't know the Virginia Constitution, which laid out our very distinct 3 branches of government. That was the first Constitution that laid out distinctly the 3 distinct branches of government, and the separation of powers doctrine was implemented. Okay? The legislative branch, and it goes in this order: legislative branch, executive branch, then the judicial branch. See, before it was the legislative and executive were kind of combined together. Well, that's been separated, and each branch provides oversight of the other 2. And due to the separation of powers doctrines, one branch cannot exercise powers that properly belong to the other. So the legislature is supposed to create things, because that becomes the sovereign body politic, Okay? They can create a statute to regulate McDonald's. But they can't create a statute to regulate the people. Because we already have a body of law over here in the private. This is all in law, in the public. Okay? And then the executive branch is to execute the laws of its creation. And then the judicial branch, one, is to provide oversight of the legislature to ensure that the legislature is not usurping their powers by creating legislation outside of the powers delegated in the Constitution. So when the judicial branch says, oh, we have the power to interpret. No, not the Constitution. You're bound to support it. You're supposed to interpret whether or not the legislative branch has usurped its powers, or if the executive branch has usurped its powers. But then we have things like Hale versus Hinkle, a case out there, Hale versus Hinkle, that talks about there's a reserved right in the legislature to do an investigation. Wow. Why does my Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure here talk about investigations? Why are we seeing it right now? House Oversight Committee and all these committees, they're doing their own investigations. Because that's a power that properly belongs to the legislative branch, not the executive. Yeah, the executive branch is to execute, to do what they're told. They're not law enforcement officers. So, for example, okay, you go into the judicial branch, you lay your complaint before the judge, the magistrate, their justice of the peace, take the stand, be sworn in, give your testimony, and then it's signed, sworn, and subscribed, reduced to writing, okay? And then the judge determines whether he's going to make a commitment to allow you to hear the case, to prosecute the case. And then, let's say there's a warrant for the arrest, okay? So you get a warrant for the arrest. Now, the sheriff is supposed to be the bailiff. Supposed to be standing right there in court. And one of the duties of the sheriff is to ensure that the judge, the judicial branch, does not exceed its authority. That he follows due process of law to ensure justice. Even goes so far as arresting the judge if the judge steps out of line. Okay? But the warrant goes directly to the sheriff, and then the sheriff is supposed to execute the warrant. That's right. Execute. Service of process. Okay? They're not supposed to be called law enforcement officers because, one, they don't enforce law. It's all code. And then what happened to the fundamental principle that we're not supposed to have any standing armies, no armed bodies of men outside of here's a true application of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. Oh. That's right, we're supposed to have that militia. The organized militia is what is well-regulated. Regulations, not law. Okay? So, this was one of the complaints, declared acts of tyranny, in the Declaration of Independence, as well as in the Declaration for the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, July 6th, 1775. Yep. That's one of them declared acts of tyranny, folks. Standing armies, armed bodies of men. That's what an army is. Armed body of men. We're only supposed to have a well-regulated militia for the security of our free state. Not a police force. Not an FBI, not a CIA, not an EPA, not anything else. None of that's supposed to exist in our republic. And I know that might be a shocker to a lot of people out there, but I have the proof of the history of how this policy, yes, it's pronounced policy, it's a 3-syllable word, not a 2-syllable word, because if you try to pronounce it as a 2-syllable word, you're going to get police, like head lice, or polar ice caps, pole ice. Sound like a retard trying to pronounce it as 2 syllables. There's no way to get police out of that word. But etymology says it's pronounced policy. 3 syllables. And, hooked on phonics here, let's just spell it. Police. Policy. Just on the phonics of the letters. P-O, L, Paul, I, C, C-E, 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 policy. How do we not know this? But that policy officer was actually created by the king back in the late 1600s. And actually it was more towards the mid 1600s at the ports. Gee, wouldn't that be where we're supposed to have the military at our ports? Forts, ports, magazines, and arsenals? That well-regulated militia? The organized portion? Supposed to be at them forts? Oh, yeah. That's the armed bodies of men that are lawful. The sheriff is supposed to be the sheriff and his one deputy. That's it. One. Gee, maybe that's where the coroner came from. So it was the sheriff and the coroner. One deputy. Okay? True Republican form of government and history of law. This is what is meant by no standing armies, no armed bodies of men. That's what our founders meant. We don't want that. We don't want to have a police state, a policy state, where you have so-called policy enforcers, and then let me tell you, they were called revenue officers. Revenue officers. Well, this ties right into bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties, those writs of assistance like traffic tickets. Writs of assistance. There's no victim, there's no accuser, there's no injured party, no real party in interest. This goes back to the Magna Carta, chapter 38. Not supposed to be doing this. Prosecution by information of the officer, the revenue officer. Again, this stuff is as old as the Magna Carta, 1215. This is a repeat of history, folks. And this isn't the first time. So for those of you that are new, this might be real eye-opening, a real awakening for you to hear this. Which is why the Second Amendment says the right of the people. The people, not persons. Not American state nationals. It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Like it says in the preamble, we the people. In order to form a more perfect union. It doesn't say we the nationals. It says we the people. And I want to clarify that again because national doesn't exist in the law of nations. National didn't come into existence, into being, etymology, until 1878. And the only place to find it is in the United States code, Roman civil law, the corporate bylaws. Because that's what that is. It's the bylaws of the corporation. So for those of you out there that thought you were correcting your status, I don't know how you got duped into believing that you had to correct your status. But the fact is they're citing United States Code as a definition. That's corporate bylaws. Show me real law. Well, it doesn't exist in real law. It only exists under the corporate bylaws. So what you're actually doing is screwing yourself over, putting yourself outside of what possibly could be government de jure, and putting yourself back in under the Vatican and England, the Roman civil law, the Roman Catholic Church, because that's where all that comes from. Back under the Vatican and the Pope, which, like Anna von Reitz, has her blood oath bond to the Pope and the Vatican, which I've showed that before. It's actually on national-assembly.net's website. Okay? So, I had it long before that, right? Long before I found National Assembly. But, and then, I asked a simple question of why do I have to get the birth certificate, which is a fraud. I know it's contrary to some people's beliefs out there. Well, it's not fraud. It's not fraud. Yes, it is fraud. Because it wasn't done with full disclosure. There was no meeting of the minds. And how do you change a creation of God? I am man. Creation of God. How do you change that? God's the sovereign. You can't mess with God's law. That's why it's fraud. And that's why we don't have to change our status. Not in this sense. Now, like it does say in the Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 212, about the inhabitants. And that it's up to the child when he becomes of age to declare his status. Oh, that's it right there. Declare. Gee, isn't that what you do when you register to vote? You're declaring that you're a resident, that you're now one of the people, and you're claiming political rights, political power. I don't care if it's under the corporation, it's government de facto. Where there's a right, there's a remedy. That's the remedy. That's how we obtain political rights, political power, and become one of the people. Okay? Because remember, all political power is inherent in the people, not American state nationals. Not national, not anything national. Get that out of your head, folks. I'm sorry you got duped. And because of what it really means, what you did there, is why you can't be a part of government de jure in the National Assembly stuff. Kind of like wanting purebloods, not traitors. Not that you were intending to be a traitor. The traitor is your Anna von Reitz and David Straight that are lying to you folks. Okay? You're being duped. You do all that crazy ass fancy paperwork. It's a bunch of gibberish and nonsense. You want to talk about bar word salad? There you go. It's all word salad. It blows my mind reading some of that stuff. Anyways, back to the people here, and what we're supposed to be doing is reassembling, right? And that's the nationalassembly.net, national-assembly.net, man, tongue twister, .net. I'm going to, let's see, how do I do that? Yeah. And I was actually going to go over some stuff about Virginia and show the people from history about the General Assembly. I mean, this is 1621. And it talks about the General Assembly right in the very beginning here. That's the governor and all that good. This is how this is laying this out. Lastly, in maintaining the said people in just people in 1621, not national, in justice and Christian conversation amongst themselves, even in 1621, Christian, in the advancement of the honor and service of God. Yeah. And the enlargement of his kingdom amongst the heathen people. Yep. What is that right there? The General Assembly in 1621. Or generally to be called by the governor once yearly and no oftener, but for very extraordinary and important occasions, shall consist for the present of the said council of state, and of 2 burgesses out of every town, 100, or other particular plantation, to be respectively chosen by the what? Inhabitants in 1621. That's a capital I, inhabitants. People. See these words? How they're being used in 1621? Which council shall be called the General Assembly, wherein, as also in the said council of state, all matters shall be decided, determined, and ordered by the greater part of the voices then present, reserving to the governor always a negative voice. Gee, in 1621, here's our republic. Right there. What is the power of the General Assembly? And that reserving to the governor always a negative voice, that's the gubernatorial veto. The veto power. In 1621. And what? Wherein all matters shall be decided, determined, and ordered by the General Assembly. The power of the people. And this General Assembly shall have free power to treat, consult, and conclude, as well of all emergent occasions concerning the public weal of the said colony, and every part thereof, as also to make, ordain, and enact such general laws. Wait, the General Assembly does that? I'll be damned. You know, if I hadn't read this, I wouldn't have known that. 1621. Man, I hate to cut this short, but I got somebody showing up real quick. Pick up their car, I think. Anyways, wanted to show National Assembly real quick. Let's see. Here's the website, national-assembly.net. Our conference call here is on Thursday nights. That's this tab right here, conference call info. You can download the app there. Free conference call app, either Android and install that there on your phones. If you're going to use your phones on your computers, there's some videos there to teach you that. Here's the free conference call link to the National Assembly call. You can click right on that. Okay. So that's all I have for you guys tonight. I need to cut this short right now, so forgive me for that. Wanted to tidy that up. But anyways, lots of reading there. Click on that stuff. Okay. God bless. Thank you all for tuning in, liking, following, sharing. I appreciate you, and Love y'all. Thanks for your prayers.